A lot of these announcements are confirmations of concerns that we've had for years. I've been concerned about a stage-managed global war scenario for over 10 years. And so these announcements that we're seeing now are right in line with the concerns that we've had. So let's go ahead and try to cover a number of stories in less than 15 minutes. Russian President Vladimir Putin says U.S. dominance is ending after mistakes typical of an empire. And there's a lot of denial that there would be a conflict between the United States and Russia under Donald Trump. And I believe that that was a part of a cover to misrepresent what the agenda was. Vladimir Putin said on Thursday that America's global dominance is coming to an end, with the United States itself accelerating that process with a string of mistakes, quote, typical of an empire. Now, we are living in a very Orwellian world, for example, where if someone makes a statement like that, they could be called a leftist. And for years, people could, by design, be directed in the direction of Vladimir Putin. And I've been discussing that for over 10 years from an independent perspective within the alternative media, saying this doesn't smell right. RT seems to be there for a specific reason, to play a part later as we're divided within our own nation. And this is still something that's playing out. And the mainstream media and the top dogs in the alternative media won't feature the true independent perspective. It's still going to lean one way, left or right. When you have a society that's built like that, it's a society that's ultimately easier to control and easier to divide before the big event. And there's still a lot of people that scoff at the idea of the big event or something being manufactured, but this is what we have manifesting right now. So we're seeing an increase in this nationalism and the war rhetoric. Going on further, he said, and the moment comes when it can't handle them, neither in the security sphere or the economic sphere. And years ago, I would say that they would build a case against the United States. This is before the current standing presidency of Donald Trump. So the mind control is so thick here within our own nation that if someone has been consistent with their warnings about things going in a particular trajectory just based on their own intuition, there's also visions of others. There's been a number of different people that have had prophetic visions or dreams of the East and the West going to war, and even more so, visions of an occupation. Check out the video I did with Leon Legant. Man has vision of, and then you'll get the picture from there. At least what people have foreseen in advance. And this was before even Barack Obama was our president. Just this sense that people have had over the years that this is the inevitable outcome, because we are still under their structure, their control. We haven't seen a toppling of what I would call the modern day Roman structure or Roman Empire. The modern day Roman Empire is not limited to the United States. It includes the behaviors of some of these larger superstate nations as well. They didn't get to where they are alone without their own oligarchs and their own pyramids of control. So a lot of people forget that, and they don't question enough why we see certain emblems on the shields and the flags of some of these nations. People don't look enough at some of the things that unite Russia and the United States. Not enough people are critical of what's really happening in Syria and the idea of both sides destabilizing Syria itself. And we look at Yemen, we look at the atrocities taking place there. We'll go ahead and do that now, and then we'll come back and cover the other information. Plagued by cholera, hunger, more children are dying in ravaged Yemen. And this is a story that people are aware of, but people really don't touch stories like this anymore that I can tell within our society because, well, it's not that it's too graphic for them. Ultimately, it's that they don't see how it's relevant to them, what's happening to the people of Yemen, what Saudi Arabia is doing to Yemen, and how it's significant when you see these types of connections between our own government, Saudi Arabia, Donald Trump putting his hand on the globe. And a lot of people think it means nothing. when I would argue that something is being shown to us in plain sight. Now let's go over here with the latest statements from Trump. Trump confirms the United States will withdraw from key arms control treaty. So changes are being made that is going to continue to change the nature in which future warfare is conducted. President Trump confirmed the United States will pull out of the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty, the INF, and that is a deal that was signed between Washington, D.C. and Moscow during the Cold War. So Cold War agreements are being ripped up. He continues, we'll have to develop those weapons. The INF, which was signed between Reagan and Gorbachev in 1987, allowed the U.S. to counter Chinese efforts to accumulate arms in the Pacific, but prevents Washington from deploying new weapons in response. Now, there has been an arrest with a new attempt to divide us from within. And so, this is something that a lot of people don't want to look at, and some people have their own biases. I'm going to keep this simple. Would you want it done to you? It's not funny. It's dangerous. And I think that we are entering the new age of the propaganda wars, where there will come a day where we could see ourselves marginalized and boxed into one group, deemed a threat. And when you pay close attention to what's happening with Google now and China, and we start to see the building up of the evidence of this tampering, even if you have your own biases, but maybe you should check some of those. We all should. If someone has their own belief, then they should be allowed to have their own belief. But we shouldn't be programmed then to be at war with others over their beliefs. You can see, and this thing keeps building and building because it's the nature of human psychology. When people see, and I've had this experience, but when people see someone do something, they think, well, we should go ahead and do that same thing to that person. It's the only thing that's fair. And in the future, right, one of the things that I foresee is this propaganda all over popping up about the American threat, but even more so than our own government, it's really being lumped into the same thing, the same whole. And that's something that I think people are in denial of, because that prospect is a little bit frightening. And people have been conditioned to see Russia and China, but in particular Russia, as more moral in every way than the United States. And that probably would include how they conduct themselves in the battlefield. Well, when you actually go in the history books and you look at the fall of Berlin, for example, fall of Nazi Germany, go ahead and do that, bring up a Wikipedia page. I get tired of reminding people of it. But there was a lot of horrible things that happened to the German women at the hands of the Russian male troops. We also see other things that have happened in war, things that our own government has turned a blind eye to. Also, even destroying the rape kits. Once there was some investigations of female Marines, servicemen, troops. So there's been a rise in stories of their own sexual violation, and there's been a cover-up of that. So we've seen things that we know of, that are provable, that we can document, that are fact, that are part of the historical record, not just within our own government, but within human society. Like, there are certain things that go down when nations end up occupied, for example. Not just going to war, but when the worst case scenario happens and you have an occupation of a particular region. Take a look at the Japanese and the rape of Nanking. And so there is a lot of this. And the Chinese have a grudge also with regards to certain things that have happened to them historically. These things that have happened in history haven't just gone away. And so we've been conditioned, most of you are Americans, most of you are Westerners, to not really see how dangerous this can go. Most of us haven't actually lived through Nazi Germany, and most people are under a propaganda spell that these things or those things could never happen again, that another group would never be targeted like they were before, as if we learned the lessons from the past. We haven't learned the lessons from the past. People are in a big time campaign a lot of people online to say certain things in the past didn't even happen, and certain people out there that could pose a threat to us are potentially our saviors, the counterbalance to the NWO. And I've watched this build ever since I got involved in the alternative media, and I've warned about it, and I've said one day we're going to see something come about from this deception, this propaganda, to make him look good to even our peers, our fellow countrymen. And it was real suspicious seeing the rise of RT so quick, so fast, without people asking greater questions as to how there was an InfoWars RT alliance and how that was done also to help promote RT. Once Alex Jones did his job, he was no longer on RT, but I believe his job was there. It's probably a reason why Liz Wall, when she used to be with RT, canceled an interview. I'm glad it never happened between myself and RT back in 2012 to talk about transhumanism. Someone intervened to make sure that that interview was canceled. So I do think that even RT in the earlier days had a heavy-handed level of control with regards to those people that were brought on to push certain narratives, and those people that were blacklisted from coming on because they may say something that's outside of the paradigm of what's accepted by their network. So when we look at this next headline, you need to look at it from the perspective of it could happen to you as someone that may identify as a white American, the same type of technology used to marginalize particular groups. This is weaponized. This is weaponized propaganda. And a lot of people want to make it about the election. I think it's really about targeting those people overseas and even groups within our own nation. People make it about the election so they get defensive about the fact that they're happy with the current political cycle and things of that nature, instead of the very fact that people are being targeted. Then there could be someone who's not even a member of a particular religion, but based on appearance alone, as a result of this propaganda, people around the world can confuse a particular appearance with, for example, a particular religion. And that's not good, because you wouldn't want it done to you. It's the golden rule. There's a guy named Ron Paul. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of a guy named Ron Paul. Maybe run a Google search for Ron Paul. See, there was this guy named Ron Paul who talked about the golden rule. See, he even had like this speech where he tried to get it through the minds of the people. And I'm not saying that I know that he's an angel. I'm sure he has his flaws, maybe more than I know. But the things that he said resonated more closely with me than any other politician, especially that speech in Congress. Well, what if we had Chinese, say Russian, Chinese troops, say in a state like Texas? How would we respond? How would we like it? So here are some images. We talked about the fake news epidemic that we saw in 2016, 2017. Some of the images that have popped up now. A Russian woman has been charged by the U.S. Justice Department with conspiring to interfere with the U.S. midterm elections. She's been accused of orchestrating a $35 million social media scheme to create fake accounts and post divisive propaganda similar to what we saw in 2016. So we have this. Going back to this, I'm not a fan of Obama. I criticized him and lost a lot of friends for saying he was also a part of the New World Order and basically indicting him for being a part of the system. But I noticed even then that there were attempts to make it about him being a Muslim and not so much Donald, or rather Barack Obama, the person that's expanding the police state, the person that is involved in the banker bailouts, that is expanding the military-industrial complex, that is expanding the drone attacks. And then of course you have the association of the people around him. But to keep it about this, keep it about this, keep it about this in the current events. Now, to the next image, similar type of a theme. Angry eyes. No cult pretending to be a religion should ever be given the freedom to exist within the same Western countries that they are taught to hate. This is stuff that's ramping up for concentration camps. Like something out of Schindler's List, they can literally do it by names alone. We've seen years and years of the DNA registry, and we see certain people concerned about their DNA. I don't see enough concern about other reasons why this database has been created. So, looking at the announcements from Donald Trump and the more aggressive statements with regards to war, recent statements from Putin. You know, I basically said on an interview that was deleted by the YouTube channel because I wanted people to see it, that I felt that we were coming up on a conflict. It wasn't so much about hate or hating a particular person, Donald Trump or anyone else, but not buying the BS, not drinking the Kool-Aid. It wasn't, folks, it really wasn't because Obama was black. It was because he was a part of the military-industrial complex. Some of you understand that. A lot of society doesn't. There's a flip side of that with Trump. It isn't about being for Clinton. She's a part of the same system. It's about not drinking the Kool-Aid. Please support this channel. I'd like to bring you more news. It's difficult being an underdog and feeling shadow banned in my 12th year, but I'd like to continue. And I think that we're going to have a lot of things to report on. I'm Alex Ansary. Until next time. Check out the links down below. Subscribe, like, and share.